Wake up, folks, because you need to see what they're doing in Florida. In this video, I'm going to show you how tech millionaires have hijacked the bill to stop geoengineering. I'm also going to tell you how some Republicans have already started voting against Donald Trump and his policies. So let's start this very important video with this message from Governor Ron DeSantis.
Senator Ileana Garcia has legislation in the Florida Senate to ban geoengineering and weather modification in the state of Florida. I support the legislation. However, the Florida House of Representatives has gutted Senator Garcia's legislation, and they would actually codify the practice of geoengineering and weather modification. People got a lot of kooky ideas that they can get in and put things in the atmosphere to block the sun and save us from climate change. We're not playing that game in Florida. I support what Senator Garcia is doing, and I hope that people will tell the House of Representatives in Florida, do not gut this bill.
I'm sure you remember which bill he's talking about because I've been covering it ever since those hurricanes hit our southeastern coast and caused an unprecedented loss of life and property. And now we find out that this bill is being gutted to allow some form of injection of chemicals into our skies. If that's not concerning, I don't know what is. And something tells me it has a lot to do with people who are actually spraying those damn chemicals.
My name is Augustus DeRico. I'm the CEO and founder of Rainmaker. We're a cloud seeding company that is enhancing precipitation via advanced radar and also drones for the sake of supplementing water supplies for farms, cities, reservoirs, and wildlife throughout the United States. Our ultimate vision is to end water scarcity, and we've begun that mission already. I'm testifying to not oppose the spirit of this bill, which I think is well-founded, but the current configuration of the bill that I think would impede this mission for ending water scarcity and also for bringing the best-in-class technology to Florida and the rest of the United States.
Look, even if the practice of cloud seeding isn't dangerous, shouldn't the public have the right to decide if they want it or not? And people of the Sunshine State seem to agree because this is the kind of comments they're leaving in response to this statement from Ron DeSantis. Put it on the ballot. Sign an executive order banning it. If they stop weather modification and geoengineering, it might help our insurance rates. How much of the tragic storms are due to them playing games with what God created? Now, this guy raised a fair point. The home insurance rates are going up in Florida every single year.
According to a Florida Tax Watch report today, Florida's average annual premium nearly triples the national average, and those rates are even higher here in South Florida.
It's tripled.
He showed us the paperwork from $1,260 in 2019 to his quote this year, $4,700.
35 feet of elevation is more than a mile from the Hillsborough River and is 3 miles from Tampa Bay. The new rate would raise Bryant's monthly payment by $940.
In fact, they were already up 60% before the last two hurricanes even hit the state. So now they're going up even more and pretty much forcing many people to just leave the state. Now, interestingly, last I checked, the Florida congressmen were endorsing this anti-geoengineering bill without any doubts, but for some reason, now they're modifying it.
The goal really is to keep the structure of the house intact, not lose my roof if we have a major hurricane.
Even with all the upgrades, his annual premium is north of 10 grand.
I know a lot of people have seen their premiums go up more.
This includes a nearby neighbor who told me away from our camera her annual premium is more than $20,000. And she's considering going without insurance.
Rising costs, particularly in South Florida, we're seeing more and more Florida homeowners make that decision.
Mark Freelander with the Insurance Information Institute says a recent study showed 15 to 20% of Floridians choose to drop their insurance.
So to me, it paints a very grim picture of just how much control our elected lawmakers really have, because it's clear they eventually have to surrender to their donors. And you can love or hate Ron DeSantis all you want, but you gotta admit, he's not afraid to speak for the people. He's also much more aware of how devastating hurricanes can be since he was on the front lines during Hurricane Milton.
We have also worked with the utilities to have the largest staging of utility workers and linemen in advance of the storm any time in American history. We will have in Florida, by the time the storm arises, over 50,000 linemen And those linemen are being brought in from places as far away as California.
The Florida governor is also continuing his fight to remove income and property taxes from his state. Just look at what he told Dana Loesch.
But man, can you imagine no income tax and then we go after property tax last year? We have a lot of seasonal folks who aren't Florida residents. We have the luxury of being able to offload our tax burden to non-residents.
And yet, in another statement, he also informed the people of Florida that some state Republicans are not their friends.
While Republicans in the Florida House are balking at giving you property tax relief, they are focusing on office space and parking spaces in the Florida Capitol. That's right. They actually took away an office here in the Florida Capitol from our U.S. Senator Ashley Moody that had been used by Senator Marco Rubio for 15 years until he became the Secretary of State. Why did they take it away from Ashley Moody? Because she opposed their attempt to impose amnesty legislation on Floridians when I called for a special session in January to help President Trump enforce immigration law and increase deportations. They got caught on that. The voters rejected that. We were able to get strong legislation, and none of this would have happened without that legislation. But how petty is this that they're trying to eject a U.S. senator from an office space that had been used for 15 years by Florida's U.S. senator just because she did the right thing in opposing what they're doing? It is an embarrassment to the state of Florida. It is an embarrassment to the Republican Party.
And this is why I respect Ron DeSantis, since he's going scorched earth on some of these issues. If Gavin Newsom had adopted a similar attitude, LA might not have burned like that. Instead, well, that guy, he's just happy to be a podcast host now, while California keeps turning into a dystopian hellhole. I mean, this video perfectly sums up why working class people are suffering in California.
So I moved from California to Florida last year, and in Florida your car registration is due the month of your birthday. So I just got my car registration in the mail, expecting to cringe as I opened it. For backstory, in California I was paying like $700 and something a year for my car registration. In Florida, my registration is $47.05 for 1 year for the same price of vehicle. I do have a different vehicle now, but it is the same price of vehicle that I had in California.
You basically can't even own a car there without getting screwed. Now, moving on, I want to talk about how some Republican politicians are also causing similar problems in Congress as well. Instead of voting on key issues, these congressmen voted with the Democrats to end the House session because they wanted to vote from home.
Well, it's a very disappointing result on the floor there. A handful of Republicans joined with all the Democrats to take down a rule. That's rarely done. It's very unfortunate in this case. 96% of House Republicans voted against proxy voting because they believe it's unconstitutional and they agree that it would open a Pandora's box. And so that's what we just saw. Let me just make this clear. That rule being brought down means that we can't have any further action on the floor this week. That means we will not be voting on the SAVE Act for election integrity. We will not be voting on the rogue judges who are attacking President Trump's agenda.
Any member of Congress, for any reason whatsoever, finds them in a situation where they're not able to do the job here, the important job we're elected to do, they should step down because someone else can serve in their place. They're not required to be here. They're not more important than anyone. They're not more important than people in their district. And they shouldn't go across the aisle and work with Democrats while Democrats use a baby propped up around the floor trying to prove their point.
And just take a look at how many holidays these lawmakers already have this year. You tell me, do they have any reason to stop such important House sessions? And when I say important, I really mean it. Did you know it was just discovered by DOJ that more than 5 million non-citizens were issued social security numbers and they were even receiving benefits?
And we found that there were just about 5+ million of them that came to the country as illegals through an automatic system, social security numbers, so they get into our benefit systems. And we tracked that through and found that they were on the benefit programs.
And let me show you an even more shocking part of this story.
See if they were on the voter rolls. And we found in a handful of cooperative states that there were thousands of them on the voter rolls, and that many of them had voted.
You know what's funny to me? When I first reported this story before the election, people called me a conspiracy theorist. Well, it just goes to show why people are now suspicious of everything they see on mainstream media. Now, funny enough, some Democrats are even openly admitting that they want illegal immigrants to vote. Miss Luna's bill would have stopped this kind of nonsense, and yet let's hear what Congressman Jeffries has to say about that bill.
In that referendum in Wisconsin, then you should have brought the SAVE Act, which is a voter suppression bill that we strongly oppose, to the floor this week. You could have done it. You could have done it today. You could do it tomorrow. We dare you to bring the SAVE Act to the floor. We'll have that discussion. That's voter suppression.
Can someone please tell this guy why someone who's not a citizen of this country should not be able to decide the fate of this country? But this is the kind of nonsense they keep putting out, and no member of the media calls them out. I mean, just watch how mad Jasmine Crockett is at the thought of Republicans impeaching activist judges.
Problem that we have right now is that if we continue down this road, then we will not have a rule of law, because we have people that are currently serving and they're saying things like, ignore the judge's order. What it means to have law and order in this country is that you follow the order and you go through the appeals process, even if you dislike what the judge did. Thank you, and I yield.
I'll yield back.
Luckily, for once, a Republican congressman was there to call out her BS. I mean, just listen to how Congressman Darrell Issa destroys her shallow argument.
You're good. You're good at that, but I'll take my own time. I'll recognize myself, and I'm going to note that when Ms. Ocasio-Cortez, or AOC as we know her, filed articles of impeachment on Justice Thomas and Alito, Ms. Crockett was one of the co-sponsors along with Mr. Cohen, both members of this committee. It does seem interesting that when the shoe is on the other foot, everyone is self-righteous.
It is not a question of if Congress has jurisdiction and power over the Supreme Court. It is what power are we going to exercise?
Which is that I believe that the Biden administration should ignore this ruling. The interesting thing when it comes to a ruling is that it relies on enforcement. And it is up to the Biden administration to choose whether or not to enforce such a ruling.
And that's how you need to shut down these two-faced politicians who keep hurting this country for their own benefit. Now, this insane situation in Florida, I want to know what you guys think about it. Do you think they should immediately push issues like geoengineering and income tax on the ballot? As always, share your thoughts with everyone in the comments down below. That's going to do it for today's video, and I'll see you on the next one.